Imagine you are a father, standing knee-deep in the ocean with your daughter by your side, thinking everything is safe. But in one instant, you look beside you, and a shark has bitten into your daughter's arm. The water around her turns red with blood. Desperation sets in as you fight to save her, battling both the predator and the terrifying reality that time is quickly running out. That is exactly what happened to the Serrano family on a day that was supposed to be peaceful on Mustang Island, and the nightmare had only just begun. April Serrano was a lively 16-year-old full of life and creativity. Spring break had just begun, and the Serrano family from Corpus Christi, Texas, had decided to spend the day on Mustang Island, one of their favorite places for a family outing. April, the oldest daughter, was excited for a day at the beach to enjoy the sun and experience the ocean with her family. The Serrano family consisted of her father, Robert, her mother, Beth, her younger sister, Anna, who was 11 years old, and her younger brother, Ethan, who was 10 years old. They had packed their things and arrived early at Mustang Island, full of anticipation for a relaxed day by the water. The beach was relatively quiet, with a few families enjoying themselves along the shore with their children, but it was not completely deserted. The warmth of the sun, the gentle breeze, and the splashing waves created the mood for a perfect family day. After they had set up their spot in the sand, April and her father decided to go into the water. They waded about 23 meters from the shore. The water reached up to their chests, while Beth stayed behind with Anna and Ethan, who were building sandcastles near the shoreline. The water was cloudy, but neither April nor her father paid much attention to it while they enjoyed their time together. They began playing games, laughing, and teasing each other while they splashed in the cool water. One of their favorite challenges was seeing who could hold their breath the longest. April, always competitive, won effortlessly and was in the best mood as they continued to enjoy the moment. April floated on the surface of the water, her arms spread out, while the waves gently washed against her skin. Her father was only a few meters away, and both of them enjoyed the calm of the day. Suddenly, April felt something brush against her arm. She paused, frowned slightly, and assumed it was seaweed or a fish swimming by. She shook her arm to get rid of the strange feeling. However, the sensation remained. April's instincts became alert, and she quietly called out to her father because she felt that something was wrong. Before she could fully understand it, a sharp pain exploded in her arm. She gasped for air, looked down, and saw a dark shape rising from the depths. Her heart raced. It was too late. The shark had already bitten into her arm. Robert turned around at the sound of April's gasp. His heart sank when he saw the 1.5-meter bull shark hanging from her arm. He rushed to her quickly. The water swirled with blood. Instinctively, he grabbed her and began punching the shark to force it to let go. After several blows, the shark finally released her and disappeared back into the depths. But when Robert looked at April's arm, his worst nightmare became reality. Her arm was gone, severed above the elbow. Blood poured into the water as Robert held April and pulled her toward the shore. The shark circled them again, its dark shadow visible beneath the surface. In his desperation, Robert grabbed the shark's dorsal fin as it swam past, held onto it for about 20 seconds, and fought to keep it away from his daughter. Eventually, the shark broke free and swam away into deeper waters. April was pulled onto the shore, and her strength was fading quickly. Beth, who had watched the entire attack, immediately sprang into action. With her first aid training, she wrapped beach towels tightly around April's arm to stop the bleeding. Beachgoers quickly gathered. One man prayed quietly, while another helped move April farther up the sand. Others ran to find a phone to call for help. As the minutes passed, the tension grew while they fought to keep April awake. Finally, the sound of an approaching helicopter announced that help was on the way. When the paramedics arrived, they quickly stabilized April and prepared her for transport. She was flown to Christus Spohn Hospital in Corpus Christi, the nearest facility for severe trauma. At the hospital, surgeons worked tirelessly to repair the damage, but the injury was too severe. They were forced to amputate the remaining part of her arm to prevent further complications. It is rare to survive such an attack, but fortunately, April survived. After the operation, her resilience shone through. She told the doctors that she was determined to learn how to draw with her left hand and refused to let the trauma stop her from pursuing her passion. After the attack, there was public outrage that the beaches remained open, especially with Easter weekend approaching. Many wondered why no closures had been enforced, but authorities assured the public that shark attacks were rare and that additional incidents were unlikely. Despite the authorities' reassurances that shark attacks were rare, our research shows a different story. The ocean is a dangerous place, and entering it is a risk you must take yourself. One person who took that risk was Brandon McAllister. While surfing with friends, Brandon saw a great white shark and selflessly warned them of the danger. But before he could react, the unimaginable happened. Brandon McAllister was a man who lived for the thrill of the ocean. At 26 years old, he was already a respected figure within the surfing community of Adelaide. Known for his natural talent on the waves, he radiated confidence and charisma. For him, the ocean was a place of freedom and adventure, and every weekend he set out with his friends to chase the perfect waves along the southern coast of Australia. Although he lived in the city, his heart belonged to the rugged coasts of the Eyre Peninsula, especially Coffin Bay Beach, near the town of Port Lincoln. Known for its beauty and challenging waves, Coffin Bay was also home to something far more threatening: white sharks. While shark attacks were rare, with only a few incidents per year, Brandon would soon come face to face with the ocean's ultimate predator. The weekend of April 12, 2016, began for Brandon McAllister and his group of surfing friends like many others before it. The five of them had a tradition. Almost every weekend, they loaded a small, worn-out van they had bought together just for these trips. That morning, they headed to the beach, where the calm seas and gentle waves suggested a perfect day for surfing. After unloading their equipment, they did not hesitate long before going into the water. While the sun shone down from above and they breathed in the salty sea air, they used the power of the ocean for hours, with every wave bringing a new rush of triumph. Eventually, fatigue set in, and with thoughts of lunch at the beach club, the group decided it was time to return to shore. What they did not realize, however, was that for Brandon, that lunch would never happen. Silently beneath the surface, a 4.5-meter great white shark had moved closer, attracted by the sounds and movements of the group. None of them knew that Brandon was directly in its path. As he tried to ride a wave to reached the shore faster, he lost his balance and fell into the water. It was at that exact moment, as he struggled to get back onto his board, that he noticed the dark, threatening shadow beneath him. His heart raced in his chest. Without wasting a second, Brandon shouted to his friends, his voice sharp with fear, warning them to get out of the water immediately. His friends, instantly realizing the seriousness of the situation, paddled frantically toward the shore and occasionally looked back, desperate to see whether Brandon would make it too. Brandon tried to follow, but panic seized him as he struggled to escape. Then, in a split second, the ocean erupted. The great white rose from the depths, its massive jaws clamping onto Brandon's thigh and lifting him out of the water. The bite was brutal, tearing through muscle and flesh with terrifying ease. Brandon screamed as the pain overwhelmed him. But the nightmare was not over. The shark attacked again, anchoring its teeth into his lower leg. Its powerful jaws ripped into him with deadly precision. Miraculously, after the second bite, the shark let go, probably realizing that this was not its usual prey. But the damage was catastrophic. The confident Brandon was now gone, replaced by a man fearing for his life and drifting helplessly in blood-soaked water. His friends rushed to help him, pulled him onto one of their surfboards, and pushed toward shore as quickly as possible. As they paddled back, Brandon's voice cut through the chaos, repeating in a broken whisper, "I am going to die. I am going to die." Despite the quick reaction, McAllister's condition was critical. His four friends screamed for help as they desperately paddled him toward the shore. Onlookers, drawn by the chaos, began to gather on the beach and watched in shock as the scene unfolded. The lifeguards, who had already seen the attack from their tower, were ready and waiting. They rushed into action. As soon as Brandon's lifeless body touched the sand and provided first aid while paramedics arrived at the scene. Blood soaked the beach as the minutes dragged on. Every second felt like an eternity. But despite their tireless efforts, the damage was too severe. McAllister had lost too much blood. After several desperate attempts to revive him, the lifeguards and paramedics were forced to stop. He was pronounced dead at the scene, and the reality of the tragedy sank in for everyone who had witnessed it. After the attack, the community mourned the loss of Brandon McAllister, a surfer known for his trips to Coffin Bay Beach. Experts believe that the first bite from the great white shark was probably exploratory, because these sharks often test unknown objects in this way. Unfortunately, the first bite to Brandon's thigh caused catastrophic damage. A second, even more devastating bite followed before the shark released him, probably realizing that it had made a mistake. Despite all of that, the injuries were too severe to survive, and the mystery of what triggered the attack remains unsolved. Did you know that a great white shark can attack at the speed of a car traveling 56 kilometers per hour? That is exactly what happened to Jose, an abalone diver off the coast of Peru. In a fraction of a second, the shark tore off his arm, and his head was not spared either, leaving behind a gruesome reminder of the brutal dangers of the ocean. It was the morning of January 5th, 1992, and the air was still as Jose Lorenzo prepared for what seemed to be a routine fishing trip off Peña Negra. Jose, a 38-year-old man, had spent most of his life at sea. Born and raised on the Chilean coasts, the ocean had always been his second home. Fishing was not only a job for him, it was a way of life that offered both fulfillment and the opportunity to support his family. His love for the sea went hand in hand with his work as a diver, where he harvested the prized Chilean abalone. The abalones, locally known as locos, are a valued delicacy along the Pacific coasts of Chile and Peru. Their tender, flavorful meat is highly sought after, not only because of its taste but also because of the significant income it can bring. Fishermen like Jose can make a good living by harvesting locos, but with high rewards come high risks. Harvesting these treasures of the requires divers to conquer the rocky shores of the Pacific and venture into deep waters while searching submerged crevices for this elusive species. Every dive promised valuable rewards, but also the looming danger that the same waters, rich with life, could quickly become a deadly battlefield. That morning, Jose was accompanied by two of his diving friends as they went out in their boat. They anchored only a few meters from the shore, ready to begin their work. With his pry bar in hand, Jose was ready to remove the locos from their hiding places on the rocky seafloor. Without hesitation, he dived into the water and broke the calm surface with a smooth jump. The cool embrace of the sea welcomed him as he descended, dragging his collection bag behind him, ready to be filled. For the next 30 minutes, Jose moved skillfully through the depths, peeling locos from the rocks and even spearing a few curious fish that came too close. His experience as a diver showed in every precise movement. But when he checked his harvest, it was not what he had hoped for. The bags were lighter than expected, leaving a hint of frustration in his stomach. Since he did not give up easily, Jose climbed back into the boat and signaled to his friends that they would move farther out to find a richer spot. The promise of a larger harvest lay just beyond the horizon, and he was determined to find it. After searching the coast, Jose and his crew found a promising new location about 18 meters shore. The water here had a certain clarity, and the rock formations below suggested the presence of abalone. Jose had a good feeling about this spot. He turned to his friends, grinned, and spoke with a sense of optimism as he dived into the water, unaware that this would become his most dangerous dive. What none of them knew was that they had anchored too close to a sea lion colony, a notorious hunting ground for larger predators. As Jose descended, the ocean around him felt peaceful, almost soothing. The water here was about 9 meters deep, and after only a few moments of searching, he discovered a cluster of locos clinging to the rocks. His pry bar was ready, and as he carefully freed the abalones from their hiding place and let them slide into his bag, the calm was suddenly shattered. Out of the corner of his eye, Jose noticed a flash of movement, a shadow moving faster than anything should have been moving. Before he could fully register what was happening, the massive shape of a great white shark appeared and glided silently toward him. Panic overtook his body as he instinctively raised his left arm in defense, but it was too late. The shark's enormous jaws snapped shut and seized his upper body with unimaginable force. Razor-sharp teeth tore through his wetsuit and shredded his flesh, while his left arm and shoulder were ripped apart in one violent, bloody instant. Above the surface, Jose's crew did not immediately understand the nightmare unfolding below. Only when the sea turned deep red and the enormous shape of a great white shark surfaced with what remained of Jose's upper body in its jaws did they realize the terrifying truth. Frozen and overwhelmed, they could only watch as the shark held their friend. His head and left arm were gone, and his body was almost unrecognizable. Nearby, other boats noticed the chaos and rushed over quickly, their crews desperate to help. The boatmen loudly revved their engines, sending powerful vibrations through the water. The noise had an effect, and the massive shark finally backed away. Jose's crew used the brief moment and, without hesitation, recovered his remains and raced toward shore, where emergency services were waiting, ready to act. Despite their quick return, nothing more could be done. The entire coastal community was shocked by the tragedy. The attack on Jose was something none of them had ever experienced. His diving companions, shaken to the core by the horror, swore that they would never return to the ocean again. An autopsy later revealed the extent of his injuries: decapitation at the 7th cervical vertebra, and his left arm and shoulder had been torn from his body. The great white shark responsible was estimated to be over 5.8 meters long, one of the largest seen in the region in recent years. The death of Jose Lorenzo proved that the true rulers of the ocean are its predators, and no amount of money is worth risking your life. The morning of September 9, 2014, unfolded like many others in Byron Bay. The sun rose gently over the horizon and cast a soft golden light across the calm waters of the Pacific. Byron Bay, known for its long beaches and relaxed lifestyle, was coming back to life once again. Yet beneath its peaceful surface lay more dangerous sides, home to a variety of marine life, including great white sharks, bull sharks, and tiger sharks. It was a place where the risks, though rare, could become reality. The last fatal shark attack in the area had taken place in 1993, a distant memory for most people. But this morning would change everything. Paul Wilcox was one of many who found comfort in the beauty of Byron Bay. A 50-year-old British expat, he had moved to the area a decade earlier and embraced its laid-back lifestyle. Every morning, he followed a familiar routine by going to the beach to enjoy a calm swim in the cool waters of the bay. Paul's wife, Victoria, jogged alongside him. They had developed a fitness pattern. While she jogged, he swam, and afterward, each returned to the same place. The ocean, familiar and calm, was where Paul felt most comfortable, not knowing that today would be the last day he would ever enter those waters. After a goodbye kiss at their usual place, on the shore, Paul and his wife separated and agreed to meet later for a drink at their favorite cafe after finishing their swimming and running activities. It was part of their cherished routine, something they looked forward to every morning. While Victoria jogged along the beach, Paul confidently waded into the water. The cool sea washed around his feet as he went farther out. The beach was busy but not overcrowded as Paul swam about 15 meters from the shore, and the water was calm and familiar. After about 20 minutes of swimming, Paul felt satisfied. His usual routine was almost complete, and it was time to turn back. He knew that Victoria's run would soon be over. He turned around and began swimming back along the coast, his body moving smoothly through the water. But beneath him, a silent predator was approaching. A 4.5-meter great white shark, drawn by the ocean currents, had been swimming parallel to the coast. Its dark shadow moved unnoticed through the water, its eyes fixed on the shapes above it. As Paul adjusted his course, the shark changed direction and aligned perfectly with his movement. Then, without warning, the shark struck. A violent pull sharply at Paul's leg with a sudden jerk. His body convulsed, as the shark's powerful jaws clamped down, their serrated teeth ripping through muscle and tissue with deadly precision. Blood poured into the water, turning the blue waves into a dark, swirling red. Paul struggled to stay above the surface, but the shark's grip was relentless. On the beach, people began to notice the disturbance. A 52-year-old man named Mark Hickey was walking along the beach when he saw the commotion in the water. From a distance, it looked like a dark shape, a tangle of seaweed, or perhaps a turtle. But as he squinted through the glare of the sun, the horrible truth became clear. It was not seaweed, and it was not a turtle. It was a man, and a shark was circling around him. Without thinking, Mark ran into the water. As he dived into the ocean, he could see the blood clouding the water. The shark had released Paul for a moment, but the damage had already been done. Paul, barely conscious, was drifting. Mark swam as fast as he could, grabbed Paul, and pulled him toward the beach. The predator circled again, drawn by the smell of blood, but Mark did not stop. He fought against the current and the overwhelming fear that the shark might strike again. Onlookers screamed for help. The beach, once peaceful, had turned into a scene of panic. Lifeguards rushed into the water, but when they reached Mark and Paul, it was too late. Paul's body was limp, his face pale. Mark pulled him onto the sand and desperately performed CPR as paramedics arrived, but there was nothing anyone could do. Paul Wilcox was pronounced dead at the scene. The injuries were too severe, and the blood loss was too great. As the news spread, the beach emptied. The once busy coastline was now a quiet, haunted place. Helicopters and lifeguards searched for the shark that had disappeared into the depths, its massive body still visible as it retreated. Victoria, who had still been jogging during the attack, arrived at a horrifying sight. A crowd gathered around a motionless figure in the sand while paramedics worked frantically. Her heart sank when she realized that the figure was her husband. The nightmare was real. The peaceful routine that had shaped their mornings had been shattered forever. The great white shark that had taken Paul's life was never caught, despite sightings during the search efforts. It returned to the ocean and left behind only grief and fear in a place that had once been a sanctuary. Byron Bay would never feel the same again. On July 12, 2013, Tessa Calwell and Jude Bennett, both 26 years old, set out for a kayaking trip off the coast of California. The two had met several years earlier at the Pacific Coast Kayak Challenge, a well-known regional competition that attracts athletes from across the state. Tessa and Jude had quickly built a close connection through their shared passion for the sport, and since then they had often trained together, pushing each other to new heights. This trip was part of their preparation for the California Coastal Triathlon, an intense competition that also included a challenging ocean kayaking segment. On that day, the conditions seemed perfect for another training session. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the sun began to rise higher in the sky. Tessa and Jude launched from Ladgo Point toward Paradise Cove in their usual kayaks, which they had bought some time earlier and tested in many waves. The trip began smoothly. Tessa and Jude kept a steady pace as they paddled side by side. The route they followed is popular among local kayakers, known for scenic views and usually calm waters. Since they had taken this route many times before, Tessa and Jude felt safe in their kayaks, confident in their abilities, and familiar with the surroundings. But that feeling of safety was deceptive. Unnoticed by them, the warm waters that offered ideal conditions for kayaking also attracted tiger sharks, predators known for their strength and aggression. The calm of the afternoon was about to come to an abrupt end. About an hour after the beginning of their trip, as they approached open water, the situation changed suddenly and without warning. A large tiger shark, about 3.6 meters long, rose from below. The shark rammed Tessa's kayak from underneath with significant force. The impact was immediately felt. Her kayak capsized, and she was thrown into the water. Tessa gasped in shock, and a scream escaped her as she hit the water. But before she fully understood what was happening, she was pulled beneath the surface. Her overturned kayak drifted nearby, offering no protection. The tiger shark, known for its aggressive behavior and powerful bite, returned after only a few moments. It launched a second attack and bit into Tessa's right thigh, pulling her under the waves again. The water churned as she struggled. The wound was deep and serious. After the shark attacked Tessa, it let her go and swam away, leaving her injured and drifting in the water. Jude, who had been paddling only a short distance away, witnessed the horrifying attack. Although he was shocked and terrified, his instincts took over, and he knew he had to act quickly. He maneuvered his kayak toward his companion and reached her within seconds. With determined action, Jude pulled Tessa partly onto his kayak and secured her as well as he could. He immediately began paddling toward the coast, knowing that it would take about 8 minutes to reach safety. The return trip through the same waters where the attack had happened felt much longer, with the extra weight and the urgency. As soon as they reached the beach, Jude immediately alerted the surrounding beachgoers and asked them to call an ambulance. Fortunately, first responders arrived within minutes. They examined Tessa's condition and noticed the significant blood loss and the severity of her injury. Tessa was then taken to UCLA Medical Center, where she received further medical care. The seriousness of the injury required immediate attention, including surgery to repair the damage caused by the shark bite. Fortunately, the operation was successful, and despite the severity of the attack, Tessa survived. Days after the attack, local fishermen caught a large tiger shark that matched the description of the shark that had attacked Tessa. Authorities and marine biologists were called in to examine the shark and determined that it was probably a case of mistaken identity, a common error among sharks that confuse kayaks with prey animals such as seals. They decided to release the shark back into the sea. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to our channel. That would help us a lot. We will see you in the next episode.